Nobody expected a shoe reveal to start another WNBA debate. But that's exactly what happened the moment Caitlin Clark finally gave fans their first real look at the Nike Caitlin 1. Within minutes, social media was flooded with reactions. Sneaker pages were posting close-ups. Basketball fans were breaking down every detail. And suddenly, a conversation that had been building for months exploded into the spotlight. Because this wasn't just another athlete getting a signature shoe. For many fans, this felt like the moment Nike officially showed the world exactly how big they believe Caitlin Clark can become. And that's where things get interesting. For years, the WNBA's biggest stars fought to earn recognition. Players spent entire careers building resumes filled with championships, MVP awards, and historic accomplishments. Yet somehow, a second-year player has become the center of almost every major conversation in women's basketball. Whether people love that reality or hate it, they can't ignore it. The moment Clark posted those photos, the reaction was immediate. Fans had actually been noticing clues for weeks. A small logo change here, a mysterious photo there. Little hints that seemed random at first, but suddenly made sense once the shoe was revealed. Then came the post that changed everything. A simple photo dump. At least that's what it looked like on the surface. But eagle-eyed fans immediately spotted something different. There they were, the shoes. Not hidden anymore, not teased, not rumored, actually on her feet. And just like that, months of speculation were over. But that was only the beginning. Because once people started looking closer, they realized Nike wasn't treating this like an ordinary release. The details were everywhere. The stacked swoosh design, the personal messages. The references connected directly to Clark's identity and playing style. Every element seemed intentional. Every feature appeared designed to tell a story. And that story wasn't just about basketball. It was about a player who has spent years proving people wrong. From the moment she arrived on the national stage, critics questioned whether her game would translate. They questioned the hype, they questioned the attention, they questioned whether she could handle the pressure. Yet every time the spotlight got brighter, Clark seemed to get more comfortable. And now that same journey appears built directly into the design of her first signature shoe. But while fans were celebrating the reveal, another conversation was starting to take shape online. The comparisons. Almost immediately, people began comparing Clark's launch to other signature athletes across the WNBA. One name kept appearing over and over again, A'ja Wilson. And that's where this story became much bigger than sneakers. Because nobody is questioning A'ja Wilson's greatness. 3 MVP awards, championships, defensive dominance. One of the most accomplished careers the league has ever seen. Her basketball legacy is already secure. But fans weren't talking about trophies. They were talking about attention. They were talking about influence. They were talking about demand. And whether that's fair or not, those are completely different conversations. Sports history is filled with examples of athletes whose cultural impact became larger than the sport itself. Sometimes the most accomplished player isn't the most talked about player. Sometimes the player generating headlines isn't the one holding the most trophies. And that's exactly why this debate has become so intense. Because Clark's rise has forced people to confront a difficult reality. Basketball success and business success don't always follow the same rules. One is measured by wins, the other is measured by attention. And right now, attention follows Caitlin Clark everywhere she goes, every arena she visits, every game she plays, every post she shares. The numbers tell part of the story. Television audiences, merchandise sales, social media engagement, search trends. The interest is impossible to ignore. That's not an opinion. That's simply what the marketplace is showing. And companies notice those things, especially companies like Nike. Because Nike doesn't just invest in what happened yesterday, they invest in what they believe will happen tomorrow. That's why so many people viewed this shoe reveal as something bigger than a product launch. It felt like a statement about the future. A statement about where the company believes women's basketball is heading. And perhaps most importantly, a statement about who they believe can help take it there. Of course, not everyone agrees. Critics argue that veteran stars helped build the foundation long before Clark arrived. They point out that players spent decades growing the game without receiving the same level of coverage. Supporters respond by saying Clark Brock. The deeper people looked into this launch, the more one question kept popping up. Why is Nike going this hard? Think about it. Signature shoes aren't new. Women's basketball stars have had signature deals before. Major brands have launched campaigns before. But this felt different from the beginning. The rollout didn't feel like Nike was simply rewarding a successful athlete. It felt like they were building an entire ecosystem around one player. And that's exactly why so many people started paying attention to the details. The shoe itself was only part of the story. The apparel collection attached to the launch, the marketing campaign, the timing, the messaging, even the way Nike slowly revealed information instead of dropping everything at once. Every move seemed carefully calculated, almost like they weren't selling a sneaker. They were introducing a brand, and when fans realized that, the conversation shifted again. Because suddenly this wasn't about what Clark had already accomplished. It became about what companies believe she can accomplish in the future. That's a completely different level of confidence. Most athletes receive endorsement deals. Very few receive long-term investments. There's a difference. An endorsement says, "We believe you're valuable." An investment says, "We believe you're going to become even bigger." And many fans saw this launch as proof that Nike views Caitlin Clark as an investment, not just for next season, not just for the next few years, but potentially for the next decade. That's a massive statement, especially when you consider how quickly everything has happened. It feels like yesterday that Clark was breaking scoring records in college basketball. Every game became must-watch television. Every road arena suddenly filled up. Every highlight found its way onto social media. People who had never watched women's basketball before suddenly knew exactly who she was. And that level of attention didn't disappear when she turned professional. If anything, it got bigger. The pressure got bigger too. Because whenever an athlete receives this much hype, expectations become impossible to avoid. Every performance gets analyzed, every mistake becomes a headline, every achievement gets challenged, and Clark has experienced all of it. Supporters praise her impact, critics question the coverage, fans argue daily about her place in the sport. Yet somehow, the attention keeps growing. That's what makes this situation so unique. Most athletes spend years trying to become the center of the conversation. Clark became the conversation. Whether people are celebrating her success or criticizing the attention she receives, they're still talking about her. And in today's sports landscape, attention has value. A lot of value. Companies understand that better than anyone. Which brings us back to Nike. Because businesses don't make decisions based on emotions, they make decisions based on projections. Audience growth, consumer demand, brand reach, future potential. Those are the things that matter. And when you look at those categories, it's easy to understand why this launch is receiving so much attention. But here's where things become really interesting. The pressure isn't only on Caitlin Clark, it's on Nike too. Because when a company creates this much anticipation, expectations become enormous. Now fans expect the shoe to perform. They expect it to sell. They expect it to become part of basketball culture. And if it doesn't, people will notice. That's the risk that comes with a launch this big. The higher the hype climbs, the harder the landing becomes if something goes wrong. Yet Nike doesn't appear worried. In fact, they seem completely confident. That confidence alone has fueled even more speculation. Some fans believe the company expects record-breaking sales. Others think this could become one of the most important women's basketball product launches ever. And while nobody knows exactly what will happen on release day, one thing is already clear. The conversation has grown far beyond basketball. This has become a cultural story, a business story, a sports story, and depending on who you ask, maybe even a turning point for the entire league, which is why October keeps getting closer. And the closer it gets, the bigger the spotlight becomes. Because once those shoes finally hit the market, all the debates, predictions, arguments, and expectations will collide at the same moment. Then we'll find out whether this was simply a successful sneaker launch or the beginning of something much bigger. And if the reaction so far is any indication, the league may not be ready for what's coming next.